MACS. My name is Teresa Gordon and I am a MACS mum. I am married to Mel and we have 3 wonderful children, Scott 13, Cole 9 and Cara our MACS child who is now 3. Unbeknown to us, our MACS journey would begin in 2008 when Cara was born. Cara was born on the 5th of June 2008 at Barry Valley Hospital by C-section. My pregnancy had been horrible. Having said this, all our scans were normal and at no stage was anything said to be out of the ordinary. On our second scan, I was over the moon to find out that I was to have a baby girl. At last, I was having my little angel. Don't get me wrong, I love our boys dearly, but this was the one thing I'd always dreamed of, my baby girl. Finally our wait was over and Cara was born, and I couldn't believe it. She was in fact a girl, and I couldn't wait to introduce her to the boys and the rest of our family. Gradually I came round from the anaesthetic and was set back on the ward. Mel then went to get the boys from school. I was so excited. Still groggy from the operation, I kept staring at her, grinning, talking, but then I noticed that Cara's right eye was swollen and closed very tight. I asked my midwife to take a look and she thought that she may have been accidentally knocked in the delivery but would put it down on my notes to be checked by a doctor. Mel then came back with the boys and everything was great. I can't put into words how this made me feel. The boys' faces were a picture. Once the boys had gone home, I mentioned to Mel my concern over the swelling of her eye. Ever the optimist, Mel calmly said, let's wait for the doctor's opinion. But I couldn't help but worry. The following day, Cara had a full check. 10 toes, 10 fingers, everything all in the correct places. I then mentioned the eye. The doctor tried to examine it, but Cara being Cara wasn't having any of it. Eventually, everything the doctor done, she never responded to. I was then told we needed a second opinion. My heart sunk. Later that day, a more senior doctor came round and took a look. I knew by his face that in fact there was something wrong. On the odd occasions that Cara had in fact tried to open her eye, I noticed that the iris was a different size to the other one. I never dreamt that the whole eye was in fact smaller. The doctor then said that we needed to speak to a consultant. This had confirmed to me it was serious. I was now in a state of shock. What was happening? Why was my baby not perfect? What was wrong? Gradually, the sheer joy of our beautiful baby girl being born was overshadowed by fear. How do I tell the boys that there was something wrong? How could I explain anything when I didn't know what was actually wrong? I sat on my bed in hospital at times and sobbed. Why us? What on earth had I done in my pregnancy to cause this? I sat in the hospital watching families ecstatic, but I was thinking, hormones raging, and I was all over the place. How is this going to affect her, and how would it affect our family? I was so confused, so upset, when I should have been over the moon and away with the fairies, especially on the morphine that I'd had. Finally, my suspicions had been recognised, and there was actually a problem, as the consultant later confirmed. After what seemed forever, we were allowed home. This was by far the hardest time of all. How do I tell the boys? How do I back this to make it better than it actually was? The boys were great. They just said they wanted to help her with whatever she needed. I was so proud. The greatest help was the fear of not knowing. I'm a person that needs to know facts. Give me the facts and we can adapt and deal with whatever, but this was unbearable, the waiting. I felt so alone and had sunk to a dark place which I never knew existed. I carried on day by day, but was numb. My world had been turned upside down. It was after an appointment at Gosh when our lives started to come back piece by piece. I soon realised and felt ashamed that I had got in such a state that in fact, if all we were dealing with was one eye, we were lucky. We saw children here by far worse conditions than Cara. She was finally hooked up to a computer with all these wires. It was horrible. Seeing how your child scared, distressed, yet again, it was horrible. The team reassured us, and then finally some good news. They told us that she should have sight in her left eye, although nothing in her right. I felt sad but relieved to finally know where we were and what we was actually dealing with. Then came the bombshell. This is when we was introduced to Mr. Abaraya and his team, a cosmetic eye surgeon. What on earth was we going to see him for? He carefully then explained about prosthetic eye shells. I remember thinking, what on earth was he on? Prosthetics are for war zones, arms, legs, not eyes. She has an eye, she doesn't need one of them. Little did I know. And he went on to explain that without something there big enough to put pressure on the soft tissue, the socket could die. We need something there to help the bones grow. Without this, she could be facially disfigured as well as blind. I couldn't quite believe any of this. I felt sick and then went into full panic mode. Mr. Abaraya then referred us to Moorfields to the ocular prosthetics department. I kept thinking throughout all of this, I can't take much more, but I need to do what's best for Cara. The ocular department were fabulous. I can't thank them enough. They are now lifelong friends, and the work they do is absolutely amazing. Peter is so calming, but Cara still puts up a fight when we go to see him. I now had the words to start searching for microphthalmia and eye shells. I started to search the internet. The world's best source of information, but taken out of all proportion, the world's worst. I needed to know more. I needed to know what was out there for Cara. I needed answers. This is where I found MACS. MACS put our life back on track. Linda, our secretary, was soon to be an invaluable source of information and a lifelong friend. I soon realised that MACS was going to be a priceless source of support for our whole family. We learned of all the wonderful work MACS does, joining a family weekend where people can come together and share so much, gain valuable knowledge of how people deal with the various situations that can arise. That children can come together of all ages and not be judged for being different to what society sees as the norm. We learned of the technology that can help the children integrate into society, such as talking watches, talking mobile phones, and software that can help a visually impaired or blind child use the computer, to name but a few. The specialised equipment that can be provided by grants that can help our children. I couldn't actually believe how much there was actually available. The first family weekend we attended was hard, not knowing what to expect, but I knew we needed to do this. We loved the weekend and we never wanted to go home. We felt protected against everything. Everyone had welcomed us so much. We came away from the weekend inspired by our families, by the talent of our children, and the doom and gloom had been lifted. The most important thing to us was that my husband and I were actually able to talk positively about Cara being partially sighted and saying the word blind. After family weekend, I came away having agreed to be the London sport worker for MACS. I wanted to give something back. We now have regional supporters in many counties across England. This summer we held our first MACS week for regional supporters to hold events for families so they didn't have to wait a year for the next family weekend. We had great success. Mel came away from the family weekend inspired by the marathon runners. He ran the London Marathon in 2010 and we are very proud of him for doing this. He is now looking to compete the New York Marathon. I can't stand here and say our journey is the same as that of the family whose child is anophthalmic. Nor can I stand here and say it is the same as a family with a child who has severe disabilities. The beauty of MACS is that they find a family of the same or similar condition as your child. This way, the family would be able to help you with your journey. Many look at our children who are visually different and turn the other way. They do not realise our children have so much to offer. Get to know them. This summer, Cara was called a one-eyed cyclops. She's no monster. She's a little girl who looks slightly different. The reality is that no one of us with disabled children wants to do some of the things we need to do for our children. It may be a feeding tube, it may be hormone growth injections, or the eye shell or shells. We do it because we love our children and want the best for them. I'm sorry if this speech has been long, but to me, MACS cannot be summed up in a few words. MACS is a priceless lifeline for families who need support through such gruelling times. But they also help us celebrate what could be so insignificant to the untrained eye. A child sitting up for the first time or walking for the first time much later than the average child. They help us in so many different ways. Lastly, I would like to say a few thank yous. Firstly, to Mel, my family and close friends, without whom I would have sunk more than I actually did. Scott and Carl, my two boys, without which I couldn't put her eye shell in every day. To Peter, David and now Nick, who are the children's oculists at Moorfields, they do such amazing work. To Nikki Ragg and her research team for trying to find out what makes this happen and the genes that are affected that can cause this. To Mr Abaraya and his team who look after us in clinic and make us understand why we go through such pain. To the MACS committee who work so hard to make MACS what it is today and continues to help us grow to new levels. To MACS and our families for welcoming us into the group. A special thank you to Jenny Hogg, who helped tonight with tonight's ball, and finally to anyone who has ever supported MACS and the amazing work they do, past, present and future. We thank you. Because we need you to help us help our children. Thank you.